Hi, happy fall. I've been looking forward to making this video. I'm not going in depth into any one specific book, more having just a cozy book chat about the things that I have read this year so far. I was looking forward to making this video enough that I bought myself a little pumpkin candle right there, some little tea lights for my shelf, and then one actual little pumpkin over there. So these fall book tag questions will be based only on books I've read this year. And the first one is, in the fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. Well, it just so happens that I read a Brandon Sanderson book this year. And you know how he likes his weird, vivid settings? Isles of the Emberdark. This one started out with the novella Sixth of the Dusk, kind of interwoven in with the story that takes place in the more like a modern day Cosmere, and that starts out on a tropical, deadly island. I actually read this one coming off of Jurassic Park, and so I felt a lot of similarities between the two at first. Just that beautiful tropical place with things that are trying to kill you all the time. There's also the way the AVR are described, and then the other part of the book takes place in the cognitive realm, also known as Shadesmar, which, when you're in that part of the Cosmere, it can get pretty weird. Sailing through the unsea with weird creatures, shards of gods just hanging around, dragons. I also liked the journey aspect and having main characters that were a little bit on the older side, which you don't always get and sometimes is nice. I redid my shelves, so I don't know where all my books are yet. I'm having to look for them. The other one with a vivid setting was the third Emily Wilde book. So this one I was a little disappointed in compared to the first two. It didn't flow as well to me. I felt like the storytelling fell a little flat in this third one, but the setting was so much more vivid than the first two because they actually go to Fairy, where things are weird and strange and deadly. My favorite thing in the whole series is the relationship between Emily and Wendell. And there are things that happen in here that make that relationship seem a little strained, a little less naturally flowing, like in the last couple of books. And I probably would have preferred a little more focus on the romance between the two characters, or Emily getting to explore fairyland. And I think with this one, I was more let down because it was more different from what I expected going into it, which you could say is more of a me problem than a problem with the book. I mostly enjoyed it, just not as much as the two before it. Second question, nature is beautiful but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. I have just the one. Actually, I have two. This is the first one. Wilde by Cheryl Strayed. This is one of the few non-fantasy books I read this year. My review of this one was my least viewed video all year. And to be fair, it's a non-fantasy book that I talked about on my fantasy book channel, but I really loved it. I loved the journey that Cheryl Strayed takes us on. This is a book about a woman, and by that woman, who decided to hike the Pacific Crest Trail alone, with no experience, hardly any knowledge of what she was getting herself into. And as a fantasy reader, it had two of the main things that I really love in a story: the physical journey and the emotional journey. And her emotional journey was rough. And she would go back and forth between chronicling her experience on the Pacific Crest Trail and then going back and talking about some of the things that she was wrestling with while she was on the trail. So things from her past that had been really, really hard and that she finds that she is still dealing with. And now when all she is doing is walking all day long, she has time to think about. One of those, and the big thing that really set her on this path, literal path and figurative path, was the loss of her mother. And that's actually where the book starts before she even gets to the part of the story where she's on her trail, because that part of her life was so pivotal in where she went from there. So if you're normally a fantasy reader and looking to branch out a little bit, I do recommend this one. And Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wong. This one I read with my patrons, which was a fun experience to read a book at the same time as other people. This one was a well done read. It got pretty heavy at times. the main character that you feel like is the main character is not actually the character the book starts with or ends with. And I would say the main themes of loss in here come from the character that you actually start with, Thommel, who is trying to make it from the frozen wasteland where his people can't survive to the city where there's a chance of life. And as they're running across the danger zone, I don't remember what it's called, so many of the people die. He and his niece are the only ones who made it. So through this story, Thommel is having to deal with being one of the last of his people. And so it's more than just the loss of one person in his life. It's like a loss of identity, a loss of his culture, a loss of freedom. And I felt like his point of view and his story was a lot more poignant than the other main character, Siona, although her struggles as a woman are still very valid today, unfortunately. Also, this book is very different from Sword of Kaigen, but if you have read this one and not that one, you will probably enjoy it, and vice versa. If you read Sword of Kaigen and are wondering if this one is worth it, I would say yes. So the third question is one that I don't really want to answer, but I will. That is, fall is back to school season. Share a nonfiction book that taught you something new. So when I filmed this video last year, I don't think I had read any nonfiction, so I couldn't even answer that question. This year, I have read more nonfiction probably in the last few years combined, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I find myself in a place in life where I am seeking a specific type of growth, and the emotional stuff that I am dealing with has led me to seek out certain types of books, which for the most part, I would rather not say what I'm reading because it would be too revealing of what I am dealing with. And that's more personal than I want to put out on the internet right now. But if you've noticed that I've been putting out fewer videos the last few months, that's partly due to just being emotionally in other places than in fantasy book world, but also time spent reading nonfiction instead of fantasy books, so I have fewer books to talk about and film for. So the book that I will talk about is one that I think anybody who has either been through any kind of traumatic experience or who knows somebody or cares about somebody who has should read. That is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, MD. This book should come with some trigger warnings because the author dives into lots of different types of trauma with examples. So it can be really, really difficult to read. But I learned a lot. This author has been in the medical field and the psychiatric field for a very long time. He has worked with all kinds of trauma victims over decades. He has seen the rise and fall of different methodologies, of different types of prescription drugs. He's been in the field long enough to see how some of the treatments have worked long-term and how some just have not. And it felt very revealing of just how human brains work. And I feel like it helps bring a sense of understanding to what can otherwise feel like just chaos. I think this book has also had a little bit of a resurgence lately as people discover it and talk about it. I've actually had it for a few years and didn't want to read it because I knew it would be really heavy and probably painful, but I'm glad I finally did. So if you're like me and you've heard about this book and thought maybe you should read it but don't really want to, this is your sign to go ahead and dive in. It should be worth it. All right, more lighthearted question. This is question 4 out of 10, by the way. In order to keep warm, it's good to spend time with the people we love. Name a fictional family / household / friend group that you'd like to be a part of. Again, I wrote down 2 different ones. I don't know where it is. You know when you have a messy room and you know where everything is and then you clean it and you just lost everything? That's how I feel about my books right now. Haha, got it. I knew I put my cozy fantasy all in one spot. It's over there. So I am going to say the Enchanted Greenhouse. That group of plants is so cute. So the main characters, Turlu and Yarrow, are so dedicated to fixing the greenhouses and helping the plants. And then the plants themselves are so like on each other's side. They are there for each other. It's like the Band of Brothers trope, but with plants. And if you could imagine just spending your days, snow outside, you're inside a cozy warm greenhouse, singing songs, caring for plants, pruning, fertilizing. It sounds very calm and peaceful. And then the other one, from one of the books I've more recently read, Reckoning, the fourth book from the Songs of Chaos series. This is the Aragon-inspired Dragon Rider series. So being part of the group of friends that are with Holt and Ash might not be as sweet and cozy as the Enchanted Greenhouse, but it would have that other feel of this group of friends are fighting together and fighting for each other, and they are going through this hard time together. They have to rely on each other. So what they are going through is much harder and much more dangerous than in the other book, but in the end, draws them closer together. And I think we all need some of that in our lives, especially modern day, when we're all sitting in our separate houses, only communicating over digital devices and not facing a common enemy with magic and dragons. Question 5 is all about the appearance of the books, and I think there is something to said about book covers. Finding a good artist to represent what your book is about in one image and making the spine look pretty. People look at what a book looks like before ever opening it to see the inside. So question 5 is, it's not really a question, it's a statement. The colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. So the challenge here will be only books I read this year, and I have to find them. I actually had a lot of black and orange this year. That makes a really lovely fall colored stack. I think I need to take a photo of this. So let me pause, and if you follow me on Instagram, you will see this either before or after this video comes out. All right, that was fun. The longer I collect books, the higher proportion of my books are pretty. So the next question, number 6, we're into the second half now. Fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein somebody is telling a story. I'm not really sure there was much of that in the books that I have read, so I'm going to go with the book that I am currently reading. That's Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. I started this one this month because it seemed like a good back to school into Halloween season book. It's a dark academia. I would love to compare this one to A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik and do like a comparison video just for fun. This one's also a newer release book. It's only been out for about a month at this point. And as far as someone telling a story, it's more like the headmaster at the magic school, Arcana Academy, is telling the main character some of the supposed history or mythology about the magic and how the magic came to be and how it is now, or how it came to be how it is now. The main magic system is based off of tarot cards. If I'm not careful, I'll launch into full like book review mode. The way the magic is handled feels well done. I'll get more into it when it's time to fully review it. I am like 3/4 of the way through. So all the stuff that the headmaster is telling the main character, Clara, you're not sure at this point if that's a full picture or if it's all true or how it's going to affect what they have to do coming up. And Clara is having to decide how much she believes what he's telling her. As far as my other thoughts on this, those will wait until I finish it. Question 7, the nights are getting darker. Also not formatted as a question, I keep saying question. The 7th category is the nights are getting darker. Share a dark, creepy read. I do not like dark, creepy books. So books that I consider creepy, other people might not, but here's the ones that I thought were on the creepy side. First one is Heartless Hunter. This is the first of the Crimson Moth duology. The main magic system is witchcraft that uses blood magic. So that right there should tell you where the creepiness comes in, especially when the witch hunters keep finding victims that, trying to keep this description PG, it's a little difficult. It looks like there might be some evil witches looking for large sources of blood for their magic. And some of those parts got a little creepy for me. And the second book for this one is To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Roth. This is one that I just read. It just came out September 16th. And it's the continuation of last year's book, When Among Crows. It is very short. It's a little longer than the first one, so this would be a really easy read to just squeeze into the Halloween season. If you read the first one, you know probably where some of the creepiness comes in. There's a group of people who go hunting the mythical creatures. They're like at this war, the Holy Order, I think they're called, and they split their soul to create a bone sword out of their spine, and when they fight, they go to tear it out. And the main character's family is very, very passionate about what they do and get very into it. And then there's just a couple of like dark, creepy scenes just because of the type of creatures that it includes. Again, I don't like dark, creepy books, so someone who's looking for that might read these and go, that wasn't creepy at all. Or if you're like me and prefer to avoid that kind of stuff, now here's your anti-recommendations. Or perfect reads for the season. I will leave that to you. Up to 8 now. The days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. So this will be the opposite of the last one. And I'm going to go back to the very first book I read at the top of the year. The Forgotten Beasts of Eld by Patricia McKillop. So she just kind of writes light, fantastical stories. It's not very long. The main character has a fairly powerful type of magic, and she is very used to animals more than humans, but she gets another human in her life that she comes to love a lot. And then her love for that human is used against her, and it's like, when it comes to the romance, it almost feels like you should root for one person over the other person, and then it's not actually what you think it is. This one, actually, there is one aspect to this book that could be considered a little on the creepy side, but it's also something that the main character is able to overcome and helps her grow. And this one is just like, I don't know, it goes along with the question. It's heartwarming. It's light. It's an older style of fantasy, so it doesn't feel like you're reading a modern book. I got the 50th anniversary edition, so it's really pretty. This next one I'm going to not quite answer, but kind of. It says, fall returns every year. Name an old favorite that you would like to return to soon. I haven't had any on my mind that I'm like, oh, I want to reread this. I don't know that I have reread anything this year, or I'm looking to reread anything for the rest of the year. I do like to reread books, but I have a lot that I'm looking forward to that are new or that I haven't read yet. So a book that I'm looking forward to is an older book that I know is some people's like comfort read that they reread every once in a while. I have read one other book by this author, and my husband just bought me a beautiful edition that incentivizes me to read it. So that is somewhere around here when I find it. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Somehow I have never read this. Not sure how I've gotten away with that all this time. I had this one on my wish list. I love a green and gold book. Look how pretty that is. Also gold sprayed edges. It is just lovely. It is a classic. I love every iteration of movie or film that this has been made into. It's often used as an example in writing circles, and at some point I want to be able to say that I have read it, and I hope that when I read it I enjoy it and it's a good experience. If I don't like it, I'll be really disappointed. The other one I've read by Jane Austen is this old copy of Sense and Sensibility, which I did enjoy, so I'm hopeful to enjoy Pride and Prejudice. And the last one, number 10, fall is the perfect time for cozy reading nights. Share your favorite cozy reading accessories. I try to make this different every year, so it's not just the same ones as always. So, if any of these books that I talked about sounded interesting, I will link all of them in the description. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. I will link my Patreon and my Instagram, and happy reading. Bye.